What's up, Stitch Gang? My name is Mr. Stitch. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the nitty-gritty details of what it was like working at an Amazon warehouse back in 2019. And if you stick around even longer, I'll be sharing 2 tips on how to do a better job while you're working there that I wish that I knew before starting the job. Stay tuned. The work environment at Amazon, at least in my specific warehouse, was very glum, pessimistic. It was very factory warehouse vibey-ish. What people are there for is to do a job. Everything is timed, you know. There's time for your stow rates, you're just timed by the conveyor belt, for example, just because it goes at a certain pace and it stops for no one. So nobody is there to hold your hand or, you know, chit chat with you or stay longer than they need to, because at the end of the day, what people are trying to do is clock in, do their job, clock out, go home to their families, and collect their check on Fridays. Now, in terms of the actual work, now that we've recapped what the work environment was like, which was not a very friendly one.
If one piece of candy gets past you and into the packing room unwrapped, you're fired.
The work itself wasn't very difficult to grasp, but it was very hard. It was very labor intensive. I wouldn't say that it was boring. It was repetitive, sure, but it was more stressful than boring. I would say that my mind was constantly put to work while working. If you're stowing packages, for example, yes, it's the same process of grabbing a scanner, scanning package, and then scanning ground, then scanning package box, right? However, when you're constantly having to organize things in your mind in order to increase your rates, you know, so you might do like, okay, I'm gonna do all of the packages that are on the left hand side and I'm gonna put them in this pile, and now you're working your brain to say, okay, all of these packages that belong on the right hand will go in this pile, and then I'll just pick up those piles when I'm ready and I'll just scan all the left hand side first and then the right hand side. So like what I'm basically getting at is your mind is being stimulated, although the tasks are repetitive, they are not boring, and if anything, they're stressful. You're trying to constantly worry about your stow rates because you're timed for literally everything. So your bathroom breaks aren't timed. So I guess that's great. Might think so. But the thing about bathroom breaks are, yeah, you can just let somebody know, right? Like a manager, right? But the thing is, these managers sometimes are nowhere to be seen, or they're so hard to track. This is actually only true when you're working the belt, so I apologize for that mistake. I was just clearly animated. And I'm grabbing packages off of the belt while it's moving, putting them away, and I want to go to the bathroom. I can't just step off and go to the bathroom because I will miss my packages. So I have to find a manager whenever they decide to show up in my lane, let them know that I'm trying to go to the bathroom, and then even then I have to wait till they can find somebody to replace me. And when they find somebody to replace me, it makes you still feel bad in the back of your head, because then their lane is piling up, because what they'll usually do is they'll pick out any stower that's stowing and working hard to keep their aisle clear, and they'll pick them from the aisles and they'll put them in my position while their boxes now are piling back up on their racks that they were working so hard to clear. And in case you're lost, let me just clarify, there's 2 main positions when you're an Amazon warehouse associate. So the 2 positions that I'm talking about in the video, in case there's any confusion, the people on the conveyor belt are essentially the pickers, right? We're picking from the conveyor belt and we're placing onto these racks, these like industrial rack thingies that are then passed on to stowers, who will then take those boxes that we picked from the conveyor belt and then put them within other boxes within these like aisles that are numbered and have scanners on the floor and on the boxes in order to be ready for pickup by flex drivers or, you know, just the delivery people in the morning. This job was a lot more stressful than it needed to be, and a lot of that was attributed to poor training. Training is whack because when you first start off, they start you off with such a little minuscule amount of work, right? So if you're working on the conveyor belt, you only get assigned like 2 aisles, right? And then as soon as you get that down packed, instead of it being a gradual increase, it's just like the very next day. For example, I think it took me 2 days of learning on 2 aisles, and then all of a sudden I was supposed to pick packages for like 5 to 6, and it's like going from 2 to 6 is a very, very, big difference. That's not something that should be scaled that high that quickly. And this leads to people missing packages when they're coming in brand new, which leads to people that are at the very end of the conveyor belt to having to work 2 times as much, because they now have to not only worry about their end of the conveyor belt, but they also have to worry about all these damn missed packages and placing them on racks. Management is very unorganized sometimes and demanding, right? I'm not saying that they are bad people from a personal standpoint, but from a managerial perspective, they are not great. Like, I don't know where they get these people. George, this is for you. This is my experience working at my particular warehouse, right? So not every management is incompetent, and I wouldn't really say that my management was incompetent, but George was. Okay, jokes aside. But they did things that were a little questionable and very inefficient, right? Like, if Amazon is watching this video and you want to hire me as a manager, hit me up. I'll put some order in that building. I'm telling you, because sometimes things were ridiculous. It makes people leave. This is why your turnover is so high. So, for example, if somebody isn't meeting their rates on the conveyor belt, they'll get moved to stow. And it's like, now you took somebody who was crap AF on the conveyor belt, you just placed them in the stowing lanes, and now they are doing a shit job in the stowing lanes, which is making it so hard for now the person who has taken over their job position, because they're more a harder worker, to have to struggle to actually get to put away stuff from the conveyor belt onto the lanes, because they suck at stowing. So their stowing aisle is completely full, so they have to put stuff on the floor, which is a safety hazard. And so, bro, I'm getting into a rant, but needless to say, it's very inefficient. And what they're doing sometimes, and this is the clearest example that I can give you of inefficiency and just dumb management, is moving somebody who's doing a crap job from one position to another position that requires the same amount of effort and expecting different results. Just fire their ass. Rant over. Though the work environment was, pessimistic, it wasn't too friendly, the management was a little bit questionable, and the work itself was very physically intensive, it's important to look at some positives. One of the main things was the workload, right? So although while you're at work, it is very intense, it is very physical, everything is timed, and you have to work really hard, work up a sweat and whatnot. You did have your lunch breaks or your dinner breaks. You did have a couple of friends that you can make over time, if you're a little bit more extroverted. Unfortunately, you don't get to talk to them much, but you do get to, make friends there at work. Then there's also the whole thing with the pay. The pay for what you have to do with like a high school diploma is really good, and it's competitive for a lot of comparable jobs, right? So a lot of other warehouse jobs where they might only pay you $13, $12 an hour, Amazon is paying you $15, and I saw some comments on my videos like this one right here of some people getting paid like $19 per hour. So again, the pay for what you have to do is really good, and honestly, in my experience, overweighs all of the negatives that I just said, because if you have only a high school diploma and you're looking for a job that can actually maybe sustain you, this is pretty much one of the best ones out there, because although you only work like 3 or 4 day shifts a week, there's a lot of overtime that they do offer, and there are some pretty great positions within the company for you to move up to. And there's a lot of opportunities for you to basically move up from seasonal to permanently employed. So I actually started off as a seasonal warehouse associate, and then through time of me being there, after I think it was like 4 months, when the applications opened up for moving on to permanency or to move into permanency, I applied and I got that ability, so I was there for good. Yes, there are negatives, but there are negatives to every job. Yes, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't like, but there's a couple of things that I did like that were really nice. In my personal experience, the work was hard, but I only worked 3 days a week, 9-hour shifts, and then the entire rest of the week was for me. They also have some bonus premiums that they pay you during things like holidays where you are working. So instead of making $15, $19 an hour, you are making like 25% more. So So one time I think I worked for New Year's or one of the holidays around there. I can't remember, man. But I got paid like $24 per hour that day. And we're talking about 9 hours. So that's a nice chunk of change right there. And it's important for you to factor these things in when, you know, thinking about this review. And I still worked there, and I would have still continued to work there, honestly, if I didn't have to move and there was no Amazon factory nearby. Think about it. You get 3 days, 3 whole days of work, and then the other 4 days are basically for you to just relax. To make the same amount of money that you would make at Amazon, I used to work, you know, the entire week at an ice cream shop. So this, to me, especially when you're young, maybe not if you have a family, it's a pretty solid job. And honestly, if they fixed management and they contacted me for some tips on how to improve the work environment, I think it wouldn't be that bad of a job. The final thing that I will leave you with are 2 tips for doing a better job. The first tip is to scan your Jiffies. Know this lingo. When somebody refers to Jiffies in your store, in the warehouse, that's basically all of the little packages where somebody might order, for example, a pack of Advils through Amazon, and they're really light and they're flimsy. I'll maybe throw up a picture right here on the screen. And basically, these are your bread and butter. If you are stowing, make sure that you focus on these. Yes, focus on your bigger packages on your rack, but make sure you're getting those Jiffies, because once you get that process of scanning down packed, you can scan like 10 Jiffies in 1 minute. I kid you not. Sometimes my stow rates were over 300 by using this thing with the Jiffies. It'll help you win some of the prizes. Like I won a Roku from my job for stowing so fast by, you know, using Jiffies and making sure to, you know, keep a good pace. The second tip that I will give you, besides how to increase your stow rates, is actually when you're working on the line or on the conveyor belt and you're actually getting packages off of the conveyor belt to put on the aisles for the stowers, make sure that if you're at the very end, for example, or at the very beginning rather, to walk up the line and make sure to grab a package. Because sometimes what ends up happening that not a lot of people know before coming in is that you might get 3-4 of your assigned packages down the line, and guess what? If they're heavy, if they're small, it doesn't matter. That line's gonna keep moving. So let's say you get 3 heavy packages. If you have to, some of those heavy packages are gonna need both of your hands. The moment you get one heavy package, your other heavy packages are moving down the line, and you're gonna have to go get them and then put them back, and you're gonna start stressing because that already messes up your workflow, because now your packages are down there, you're chasing them down, grabbing them, moving them back up the line, and you're getting new packages as you're running back for your previous packages. So if you have a clear lane space and you don't have any current packages, move down the line and try and look for your packages. A lot of people were telling me like, oh, you're overworking yourself. But let me tell you, by moving down that stupid line and walking that extra mile or 2 miles in total steps by going to get my packages, it made my experience working there so much less stressful than before. It would just be so stressful because as I'm going down to pick up my missed packages, I'm having new packages, and then I'm starting to have to run and stuff like that. So it's like I'd rather walk to get my packages in advance than wait for them to get to me, have that situation like I said where you get 3-4 heavy packages at the same time and have to rush to keep up and be stressed the rest of my shift because now I am behind for the rest of my shift. It's just ridiculous. And let me tell you, do not listen to what other people says. If you have a clear line path and you've handled your current section of the boxes, move down the line. Just start looking for your packages, and hey, I'm telling you, it'll help you. You might not completely understand what I say about like moving down the line, but once you work there, you'll see that everybody gets like a certain letter and number assigned to them for the packages. And if you go on your A side or your B side and you go down that lane looking for your packages to put there, I'm telling you, it'll save you a lot of stress. And if you guys have any questions about that technique, make sure to let me know down in the comments below. But that's all for you guys. Again, my overall experience there was positive because of the pay and because of the convenience of the work hours. However, there are a couple of negative aspects that lie mainly in management and in the atmosphere, but overall it's not a deal breaker. The pay is really well, and the work, honestly, if you're down to work hard, and I always say this, if you're down to work hard, it is a walk in the park essentially, because if you're expecting hard work, you're not really expecting anything less. So when you get faced with this hard work at work, it's just work. I said work 3 times. But anyways, guys, hopefully this wasn't too confusing. Hopefully this helped you guys. And if it did, make sure to check out my video on how to actually get hired if you're actually thinking about getting hired. I have this video right here that you can click on that will actually tell you guys how to get hired at Amazon, because it's not as easy as some people might think. Anyways, guys, if you did enjoy the video, please make sure to drop a like, comment, rating, subscription, or maybe even your pants. And this has been Mr. Stitch, bringing you guys yet another video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!